Hey, this is AltBrakz. Today I'm going to go over how I do Neuro-based design using Ableton and Phaseplant. So I'm just going to show you what this sounds like, and then there's 3 different variations here. We'll just make one of them because they're all kind of based on the same patch. Here you go. So the sound we're going to create today is this one. No, sorry. This one. And the only difference between these 2 patches is one final layer of processing that I've done here. I'll kind of briefly go over this. It took a while to put together, but I've used this rack for a little bit. So if you turn this off, then this patch sounds pretty similar to this one. Almost exactly the same, actually. So each of the 3 patches here that I created for this track that I'm still working on, I did them with 3 different tracks because we're going to need three tracks for this, but I'm going to try and redo it in a way that's more efficient because I want to give away this rack as well. So I'm just going to do it with chains. So you can see here I've got the mid bass, the sub, and then a noise layer. So we'll just create a new track in here. If you do not want to do all the work and you just want the rack, if you sign up to my mailing list, I will send you this rack for free as well. So I'm just going to get these set up. So we'll just group this. We'll just call this mid. Sub, and then noise. So for the sub, I'm just going to use my sub rack that I keep making iterations on here. So we're at sub 3 now. And then just mute this. I don't need that. And then for noise, you can use whatever you want. I'm just going to use Phaseplant, but you could use Operator or just an instance of Serum or something. So we'll just filter this. I'm going to put a high pass on it. We can leave that the way it is. And now instead of how I was doing this before, where you've got to have 3 different MIDI notes here, we'll just have 1 note on a single track split into 3 chains. So let's grab the sub one. And right now you're just going to hear noise. And if we turn this on, noise and sub. I'm just going to turn both of these off for now, and we'll just start with the mid patch here. So we're just going to make a pretty simple patch. I'm going to start with a sine wave, and we'll just do a pretty simple FM patch. You can use just basic waveforms or a wavetable. I like to use some of these FM ones. I I think I used 3.1 on the patch before. So right now you should just hear a clean sub. And we'll just modulate this. And then increase the harmonic multiplier to 2. It sounds kind of boring right now, I know. We're going to automate the phase of the modulator here. So use a random LFO with a smooth shape. This is just going to give us some movement. And then it hits different every time, which is kind of cool. And you kind of want to find a sweet spot in this wavetable too, because I'm going to use an LFO to modulate this. Like this doesn't sound very good. So let's use LFO. Actually, you know what? I think I did this backwards. We'll see how it goes. I think on the other patch, I put the random modulator on the frame and then the LFO on the phase, but we'll see how this works. And we'll just add some distortion. Sorry if this is really loud. I'm just gonna turn the track down here. And then we're gonna filter it. So we're gonna add 2 filters here, a notch, and then a bandpass. So obviously it's sounding pretty weak now, but we're going to do some processing afterwards as well. And then we're going to automate the cutoff of both of these. So I try and keep the notch kind of just above the starting point for the bandpass, and then as we sweep through those, they're gonna interact with each other and create some interesting movement. I just like to use the macros here. So we'll automate both of those in a second. I think that's all I did in here. Okay, so now we can automate these. We just need to add these, go into the configuration and add both of these so we can automate them. So macro 2 is the bandpass, and 1 is for the notch. We should turn this back up now. Oops. So you just want to create an interesting shape here to get some movement. I know it doesn't sound like much right now. The processing will make a big difference. Cool, so that's it for Phaseplant. Next we can move on to the processing. Okay, so now we can start processing the mid bass here. Processing on this is pretty basic, and since we have a separate sub underneath, we don't really need to worry about destroying the sub frequencies, so we can kind of do whatever we want, although I went with some pretty basic processing here. So I'm going to start with OTT. Just make sure you put it inside the effect rack for that chain. And I don't do anything with this in this case, and just kind of leave it the way it is. And then we're going to saturate it some more. So if you crank up the drive, just remember to turn down the output, otherwise it's going to get really loud. And I like using the soft sine. And now you can hear it's getting a bit more crunchy. Next, I'm going to add an EQ, and we're just going to do some weird stuff with this. So I'm going to boost the low end a bit. Cut the mids, and do another boost around 2K, and then just crank up the high end here. And then we're going to add in a bell here so we can automate this, and just turn up the Q a bit. And then you're just going to sweep it through. Wow, I can't time anything today. We're going to automate the frequency of this. So I usually start just above the sub, although, like I said, the sub doesn't really matter here. And then you can just do whatever kind of shape you want. And then changing the automation for like this EQ sweep or for the two macros from the initial patch, you can get different variations and movement out of it. That's a bit high. Cool, and then I'm going to add a delay. If you use really short delay times, you can kind of get these kind of robotic or mechanical sounds out of it. So you just kind of tweak the delay time until it sounds interesting. Some of these, obviously if you go too far, it's just going to be a delay and it's not going to sound very good. But just find a delay time that doesn't make it sound too thin. And the last thing I'm going to add here is just a limiter. You can use the Ableton stock limiter if you want. I just like the FabFilter stuff. I mean, we don't even need this. It's not even anywhere near 0 dB. But so that's all I'm going to do for this layer. So if you go back now and turn on the sub and noise, it's still not going to sound very good. It's just going to sound like our mid layer with a bunch of noise and a sub. But we're going to process all of these together here in a second. So now we're going to try and glue all three of these layers together by processing them all at once. So just make sure any effects you drop go after the group here. So I'm going to start by adding another notch. So for this, I'm just using the auto filter. And we're just going to automate it, kind of like how we did the sweep and the 2 macros. But we can also enable OSR and drive this a bit. So you can kind of play around with the automation until you find something that sounds good. We want to be careful not to cut out the sub with this though, because now we're processing all 3 layers together, so we have to be careful and try and preserve the sub. Cool. Then we're going to saturate it some more. So I'm just going to use Ableton Saturator again. And again, I like the soft sign. I'll just turn this down. And now you're starting to get that really crunchy sound. And then I just want to compensate a bit on the output here. Oops. And then we're going to compress it. Just kind of glue it all together some more. So I'm going to use the glue compressor. And we'll turn on soft clipping as well. And then we're going to do some more signal splitting here. So the reason I like this method is you can do this all in one rack that you can save and use later instead of having to resample it, you know, half a dozen times. We're only going to be resampling this bass once. And once the processing is done here, you already have something that you can just use on its own. So it's a lot easier to make variations. So let's add an EQ here. So for this, we're just going to cut out the sub because we're going to do some stereo processing on this, and we want to try and preserve the sub. So we'll group this together. We can call this high. Create another chain. We'll call this low. And then we can just copy this EQ into here. We'll turn this off. Oops. I'm just going to use a low pass on here. So then for the high processing chain, we're going to start with a phaser and then a chorus and then a bit of reverb. But the reverb is going to be pretty subtle. You don't want to wash it out too much. And you don't want this full wet either. It's just too much. And sorry, we're using phaser, not flanger. I don't really like that in Ableton 11 they've combined the chorus and with vibrato and ensemble, and then they've combined the flanger and phaser into like one plugin. I liked it better when they're separate, but they work the same, I guess. So we're just trying to add some more movement to the sound. So you can just tweak these till it sounds good. I mean, that's really the only advice I can give you. And then we'll add a reverb. You can use whatever reverb you want. I like the new hybrid reverb in 11. You don't really need to worry about the EQ here because we're splitting the high from the low anyways. Yeah, so we want this to be pretty subtle, just to add a really subtle space to the sound. So that's kind of the finished sound before we reprocess or resample. But you can duplicate these and then do something different, create a bunch of variations if you want. Sorry, just bear with me for a second. So the initial automations for these make kind of less of a difference once you've processed all of this together, but the other thing we can try and do is swap the automation around for this, because I'm pretty sure in the original sound I had the LFO on phase and the random on the wavetable position. Sorry, my mind blanked there for a second. Cool. So then I will go over the other processing layer that I do here in a second. We'll just resample this to a new track. Just put it here. Okay, so here's our resampled sound. I have a sidechain on here, so it's being ducked here. 1 second. So that's what it sounds like. And there's a couple things you could do. You could take another one of these sounds, like this one, and we could EQ out the low end on this and then layer it with just this sound how it is, and it sounds pretty good. I haven't even EQ'd it, but or you can process this one in the same way that I've done these other ones here. So I'll just show you how I do that. So I'm not going to recreate this patch. It took a while to set up, especially these LFOs, just getting the ranges right and the speeds right to sound good with this particular sound, but I will just kind of break it down for you here. So if we just delete this, you can see how this sounds in context now. So it actually creates kind of a cool call and response between these two variations here. But I'll just go through this processing real quick. I'll just turn everything on one by one and kind of explain it here. So the most important thing is this EQ. All I've done is created 4 different peaks here, kind of one going up, down, up, down, up, down. Actually 5 peaks. I haven't automated this one for whatever reason. So that adds some additional movement here, and then I've just used I don't know why this one's not moving. Oh, never mind. I think I automated the wrong thing. That's okay. So each one of these LFOs I've mapped to the frequency of one of the peaks in this EQ. So you could use any EQ you want. I just like the FabFilter stuff, but I've done this using EQ8 as well, and it works the same. And then the other kind of big thing on this is what's going on here in Snap Heap. So I'm splitting the bands again. So I've got the low, high. Nothing is happening on the low end here. But then on the high end, I've got this reverb and then just a low pass filter. And both of these are being automated by 2 different random LFOs. Which just adds obviously filter movement, and then you get the decay of this reverb kind of cutting in and cutting out, and OTT to bring out the high end a bit more. I've got it turned down here. You can turn it up, but once you kind of get to 100%, it doesn't sound very good. And then I'm just compressing it. Not very much. And then a limiter, which again isn't even needed here. I just have a habit of adding limiters to things just to catch any peaks that might happen. So now, for example, in this track, I can just get rid of every second. Oops. every second one of these. And then I've got a new kind of variation here. Just cut that off. Oops. What did I do? Oh, I'm stupid. Cut the wrong thing. This track isn't even active. Sorry. That's this one. Yeah, there we go. That was dumb. Cool. So in context now, with the other variations that I created earlier, this is how it'll sound. Oh, you know what? I did not turn... Oh, no, this is back on. Never mind. Anyways, that's how this bass sound comes out. So hopefully that's helpful. If you want the rack for this, I will upload it and leave a link in the description to sign up for my email list. If you sign up for that, I will send out this rack to you. I've just got to remove anything that's not Ableton specific first. So I should have that by the end of the day. And then the only thing you'll need to have here is Phaseplant. But you can always just follow along in Serum or use Operator or whatever other synth you prefer to use, and then just swap out the basic patch here. All right, see ya.